Shedeur's voice changes, calm, steady, and you can feel the hurt behind it. What he says doesn't just defend his fans.
Fire the coach!
Fire the coach!
We want Shedeur!
We want Shedeur!
Number 2 is ready!
Number 2 is ready!
Let him play!
Let him play!
The fans here are booing, and I think it might be because they think they took out Shedeur to put in Gabriel. They don't know that there's an issue with his pinky. I think thinking back to that play where they took Shedeur off a couple weeks ago.
I talked to Boog about it, and it hit different a little bit. We talked, and it was these comments. Let me play this video. We talked about why he just don't like he don't like the way things be set up. I don't like the way you said that. I like it. Let's take a look at this. Now, this was during an interview that he had, and I think as we watch this interview, I'll let it watch in its entirety so you guys can catch it out and you guys can check it. I'm gonna let you watch it in its entirety because I feel like he's really coming around to a point where he got a different demeanor.
Hold up. Did Shedeur Sanders just check the entire NFL media in one interview? Because what I'm about to show you is not what you think. This man sat down, looked directly into the camera, and said, "We're not doing that anymore." And the way he did it, the NFL world is shook right now. Stay with me, because this gets deeper than football.
The way he's being more exact, intentional with his words, shows that he's not going to play around this year. It shows a level of focus and understanding of what we need to do to get to a place you need to get to and how you're not going to let people play games this year. Take a look at this conversation. And I expect this to have a trickle down situation. See, it's a lot of people get comfortable in the industry talking about the word, his followers and his supporters. But he came out, and I like how he stood on business.
Look, we've seen athletes push back against media narratives before. We've seen them get defensive, we've seen them get emotional, but what Shedeur just did, this was different. This wasn't anger, this wasn't frustration. This was a man drawing a line in the sand and saying, "You will respect the people who support me." And honestly, it's about time somebody said it. The interview started normal enough. They're talking about his time in LA, talking about the fan support, and then the interviewer drops a word, one word. He called Shedeur's fan base a cult. Now, most people would laugh it off, right? Most people would just let it slide. Not Shedeur Sanders. Not this time. Watch what happens next. The energy shifts immediately. You can see it in his face. He stops the interviewer mid-sentence and says, "What does cult mean?" The interviewer tries to play it off, tries to keep it casual. "Oh, they're just diehard fans, bro." But Shedeur's not having it. He literally makes them pull up the dictionary definition right there on camera. And here's where it gets powerful. He's not yelling, he's not losing his composure, he's educating. He's making them understand that words have weight, words have meaning. You can't just throw around terms like cult when you're talking about real people, real families, real human beings who support someone. The interviewer reads the definition, a relatively small group of people who believe in something, and Shedeur hits them with the perfect response. So that means if you have fans, you have a cult. No, let's use the right words. It's a loyal fan base. Now, some of y'all might be thinking, it's just a word, why does this matter? And that's exactly the problem. That's exactly what Shedeur is pushing back against. Because here's the reality. When you start labeling a group of people with negative terminology, when you start using words that have dark connotations, you're not just describing them anymore, you're dehumanizing them. Think about it. The word cult doesn't have a neutral meaning in our society. When you hear cult, you think manipulation, you think brainwashing, you think something dangerous and unhealthy. And that's exactly the association the media wants to create when they talk about the Sanders family and their supporters. But these aren't cult members. These are mothers and fathers. These are grandparents. These are kids who see Shedeur and Coach Prime as role models. These are people from Colorado who finally have something to be excited about in college football. These are NFL fans who are watching to see if this young quarterback is the real deal. You can't dismiss all of them with one ugly word.
Everybody has cults.
It's a relatively small group.
So that's the fan.
Yeah, but you guys have a big group.
I know, but I just don't like the word cult because whenever you use the word cult in like that context, it's viewed differently than actually what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you explain the full definition of cult, which you did, then that means pretty much a lot of people have cults.
Oh, so you're saying it's not that unique?
I don't like the word cult.
And Shedeur understands something that a lot of people miss. This isn't just about defending his fans. This is about setting a standard for how people are allowed to talk about him, his family, and everyone connected to them moving forward. Because once you let someone get away with calling your supporters a cult, what comes next? What's the next disrespectful term they're going to use? What's the next way they're going to try to diminish what you've built? This is about boundaries. This is about respect. And honestly, it's something we need to see more of from athletes. For too long, players have just accepted whatever narrative the media wants to push. They sit there and take the disrespect because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to seem difficult. They don't want to hurt their draft stock or their endorsement deals. But Shedeur just showed us something different. He showed us that you can push back with intelligence. You can defend your people without losing your cool. You can demand respect without being disrespectful yourself. That's maturity. That's growth. That's leadership. And listen, this new energy from Shedeur, it didn't come from nowhere. There's a reason he's moving like this now. Remember what happened during the draft process? Remember how the media treated him? They said he was arrogant. They said he was entitled. They questioned his work ethic, his character, his leadership. None of it was true, but they said it anyway. There was even that wild moment where a reporter literally asked him to denounce his own father. Can you imagine that? Sitting in an interview, trying to achieve your dream of playing in the NFL, and someone asks you to throw your dad under the bus on camera? That's disrespectful on every level. And the crazy part? After all of that, after all the lies and the character assassination, it just disappeared. The media moved on like it never happened. No apologies, no corrections, just silence. But Shedeur didn't forget, and neither did his father. You could see it in that clip where Coach Prime called out the interviewer. So you agree it was slander? Absolutely. It was character assassination. And Prime's response? So it's okay for me to feel some type of way about the NFL. That's what y'all are seeing now. You're watching someone who went through the fire and came out stronger. Someone who learned the game that's being played and decided he's not going to be a pawn in it anymore. The Shedeur Sanders who's speaking now is not the same person from a year ago. This is someone who's been tested, who's been lied about, who's watched people try to destroy his reputation for clicks and views.
Use different words to marginalize them, then it makes it easier for the next step to take process. Now, instead of you saying it's a cult, now you feel you justified in saying other stuff, right? It's a slippery slope. If you justified in saying that, you might be justified in actions next time. Or now I'm justified in my actions and then I could do certain. Nah, bro, we not going to do that. We not going to play that. So I believe what happens is you start to grow and mature and you start to understand.
And instead of becoming bitter, instead of becoming angry, he became sharper. He became more intentional with his words. He became more protective of the people around him. That's what real pressure does. It either breaks you or it refines you. And Shedeur chose to be refined. Watch how he carries himself in that interview. The confidence isn't arrogance. The directness isn't aggression. It's clarity. It's a man who knows his value and won't let anyone diminish it. That's the energy he's bringing into his NFL career. That's the mentality that's going to serve him well when the pressure gets turned up at the next level. And here's what the media needs to understand. That playbook you've been using, it's not going to work anymore. You can't just say whatever you want about Shedeur and his family and expect them to smile and play along. Those days are over. The Sanders family is setting new terms of engagement, and you either get with it or you're gonna have problems. This isn't about being difficult. This isn't about being sensitive. This is about demanding the same respect that gets given to everyone else. When you talk about other quarterbacks' fan bases, you don't call them cults. When you talk about other coaches' supporters, you don't use derogatory terms. So why would it be okay to do it to the Sanders family? It's not, and they're done pretending like it is. And for anyone thinking this is going to hurt Shedeur's career or make teams not want to draft him, you're missing the point. NFL teams want leaders. They want players who can handle adversity. They want quarterbacks who can command a room and set a standard. That's exactly what Shedeur is demonstrating right here. He's showing that he can stand up for himself and the people around him without losing his composure. But let's talk about what this really means for the people who support Shedeur, because this moment matters to them in a real way. Think about how it feels to be constantly dismissed and disrespected just because you support someone the media doesn't like. Think about how frustrating it is to watch people you care about get lied on and you can't do anything about it. Now imagine watching that same person stand up and say, "No more." Imagine seeing them defend you publicly, seeing them refuse to let anyone talk down about you. That's powerful. That's why people connect with the Sanders family in the first place. It's not a cult. It's not blind worship. It's recognition. It's appreciation for people who stand on principle and don't compromise who they are for anyone. These are real relationships being built. When Shedeur talks about his supporters being like family, he means it. When people say they view Prime as an uncle or Shedeur as a nephew, that's genuine. That's the kind of connection that transcends sports. And when you try to reduce that to something negative, when you try to make it seem weird or unhealthy, you're disrespecting everyone involved. So what happens now? Here's what I think. I think you're about to see a different Shedeur Sanders in the NFL. Not cocky, not arrogant, but confident, unbothered, focused. Someone who's already been through the worst the media can throw at him and came out the other side stronger. That's dangerous for every team that has to face him. And I think you're going to see the media start to adjust their approach, because if they don't, they're going to keep having these moments where they get checked on camera. They're going to keep having these uncomfortable conversations where they have to explain why they use certain language, and eventually it's just going to be easier to show respect from the beginning. This is bigger than one interview. This is a shift in how athletes are engaging with media narratives. This is the next generation saying, we're not accepting the same treatment that players before us accepted. And Shedeur Sanders is leading that charge. So to everyone watching, here's my challenge. Pay attention to your words. Pay attention to how you talk about people, because words matter. They shape perception. They shape reality. And once you start labeling a group of people negatively, you open the door to treating them badly. Shedeur Sanders understood that. He stopped it in its tracks. He demanded better. And honestly, we should all do the same. Whether you're a Sanders fan or not, whether you think Shedeur is going to be great in the NFL or not, you have to respect how he handled this moment. That's growth. That's maturity. That's leadership. And that's exactly what the NFL is getting when Shedeur Sanders steps on that field. A young man who knows his worth, protects his people, and refuses to accept disrespect. The league better be ready.